I watched two vampires race each other earlier, and let me say, it finished neck and neck. What's going on, YouTube? It is the Halloween weekend, so we are in the Hollow City inside of Cold Harbor, right on here outside of the map, and we're going over our first of two weekend vendors. We're hoping for some extra spooky items, and what better thing to start with than a bone sculpture circular. Now, a lot going on here. You have a head impaled by a piece of rope, held together by arms and limbs for 3,000 gold. I mean, could you get better value for 3,000 gold? In fact, in the comments, tell me, what's better than a circular bone structure held together by rope and looks like wood with a skull in the middle? You'd be hard-pressed to think of anything. Then we have a crow totem, which I think this is a new item. I'm actually not familiar with this item. I guess if you really hate crows, this is a good option for you. Then if you hate crows slightly less, because you just want to put their dead feathers on your totem, you get this bad boy here. And we have a reach totem, twig raven. I'll be honest, not sure what's going on. Or no, I guess this is a face. I think this is a face of something. Evil trees, like Treebeard, but evil. Then we have our tree henge green lady. This is a pretty decently sold item. Profit margins aren't super high, but it's a pretty cool item to have. I've actually seen this in quite a few housing contests. Then we have another warning totem for skulls, just because I like that there's no need. They don't even write warning on the piece of paper in the middle there. Just the fact that there's 4 skulls hanging off, and they've impaled you with a piece of wood. That's the warning that you need. Then we have Witch's Torch, Wretched. If it wasn't clear by the fact that there's 3 skulls on it. Then we have Witch's Totem Bog. This one actually is kind of cool because this one comes with like a green animation below it. So this little fog effect will also seep through walls and things. So if you wanted to, for example, phase this into one of your housing walls, you could then have like a little green fog effect without seeing a tree. So this is actually a really cool item. I'm definitely going to be buying some of these and then just putting them inside of like my book rooms where I have my Apocrypha type book areas. Don't sleep on the green bog effect. Then we have a witch's tree that is captive. Similar concept to before, but no green aura this time. Just a tree with a face on it. And then we finish off with that exact same thing, except it's burned. And apparently, if you buy the burned version, you get a 30,000 gold discount. And before we jump into our second vendor here, this is just a quick reminder to like and subscribe. We're actually on the road to 25,000 subscribers, a huge milestone. And if we can, I like to hit 5 to 10% of the view to like ratio. So if you don't mind, hit the like button. But let's jump into the main golden vendor, which you can find inside the Northern High Rock Gate, or your equivalent depending on what alliance you're in. And starting us off, we have Dummy Hoss Guys. Now, Dummy Hoss is a bit special because it comes from Falkreath Hold, and it has a couple of utilizations. Let's talk about those. First utilization is as a one piece. It gives you both magicka and stamina. One of the only sets to do that, one of the easier ones to farm, because people are always going into Falkreath Hold. Or if you wanted to, you could purchase a light, medium, or heavy helmet version of this and use it as a fantastic one piece for PvP. Generally, if you're using it as a one piece, that means you're using a mythic. So if you guys are big mythic fans for PvP, Dummy Hoss, especially if you were a magicka character, is absolutely fantastic. However, as a two-piece, when you deal damage, you create a 10-meter ring of molten earth around you for 10 seconds, which deals flame damage, physical damage, standing in there, grants you 289 weapon and spell damage. This used to be fantastic. A lot of people used to sleep on this set just because of how popular sets like Zons are, but that doesn't detract from the fact that Zons can't reach certain enemies, and this was actually like the best in slot PvE DPS set for a long, long time. Gives you an unnamed buff, check. Deals damage, check. Easy proc, check. You know, there was just so many nice, easy things that made this set great. The problem is that mythics have kind of made it slightly more obsolete, but I would say that you could still argue this is still within the top 5 best DPS PvE sets in the game. And if you only have access to the Falkreath Hold, you don't have access to Zons, or you're doing content where Zons can't reach, or you don't have access to mythics, this is a fantastic option for you. And next up, we have Grothdar, which drops from Vaults of Madness. When you deal damage to an enemy within 8 meters, you have a 10% chance to create lava pools that swirl around you, dealing flame damage to all enemies within 8 meters of you every 1 second for 5 seconds. This scales off your Mad Hot weapon or spell damage. Grothdar is okay, and arguably, if you don't have access to any DLCs, any mythics, Grothdar, Vaults of Madness is a really good PvE set. I don't think that it's the best base game PvP DPS set, but I do think that it's up there. And a lot of people may be wondering, Jake, should I go and buy the helmets? You guys are saying, these are some pretty good things. And it's going to depend. There are quite a few of you who I used to just give the blanket advice, don't buy monster set helmets. But then I realized that people would rather spend 100,000 gold, because you can make 100,000 gold relatively quickly, than farm most dungeons, especially ones that are more annoying. So from that aspect, it's perfectly serviceable to buy them, especially if you've got a lot of alliance points. A lot of PvPers are not interested in buying, or running, veteran dungeons. So from that aspect, I don't blame you. This is still a pretty good set. If you were to compare it, though, to all the mythics, all the, DLC dungeons, it definitely drops down a few pegs, but if you just compared it to base game options, it's a great option. Next up is Bloodroot Forge's Blooddrinker. Increase your bleed damage attacks by 20%. There are ways that you could build this into some conniving werewolf build, but usually werewolves just have access to so many good tanky sets or really good sustain sets that they just get so many buffs that they really don't need to focus on increasing your bleed damage by 20%. So from that aspect, I think that if you're trying to make a werewolf, you would look elsewhere. Don't go look elsewhere, because you're probably not going to wear Crafty Alfiq or any of the sets from Northern or Southern elsewhere. But I would avoid this set just because I think there are so much better options out there, even as a werewolf. And if you're just generically a DPS character or generically a PvPer, significantly better options. And bleed damage is not something that's pretty easy to stack on enemy players, and realistically, that's probably what you're going to be using bleed damage on, more than likely. Next up, from Cradle of Shadows, we have Gossamer. When you heal yourself or an ally, you grant them major evasion for 1 second, reducing damage from area attacks by 20%. This is really unique because arguably it's really good for a lot of ball groups to run. You'll see it in PvP situations pretty frequently, because there's a lot of area of attacks, like all of those big red circles that you see in large-scale Cyrodiil conflicts. This may shock you if you've never been there before, but they hurt, so being able to reduce that damage by 20% as you're healing them is pretty good. But the majority of healers are not going to run this, but it is still pretty good if you do run it. I would say it's a niche good set that if you're looking to get into that very specific ball group content or support content, it could be a really good option for you to run. Next is Plague Doctor. Now, this is from Deshaun, one of the most farmed zones in the game, so getting the golden version of it is probably not worth it. However, I do just want to note that one of the OG arena builds where people, didn't run, all these really good mythics like Pale Order that would heal you and whatnot. Back in my day, to run Maelstrom Arena, we had to use Plague Doctor. So Plague Doctor has utilization outside of just, here's a bunch of health. It used to be, here's a bunch of health. Go run this arena without getting waxed immediately. Plague Doctor does see some decent resellability, so if you bought this with AP, maybe you could resell it. There's a lot of health builds kind of trickling into different types of content right now. It's a base game one as well, which always helps, but I wouldn't necessarily invest in this personally, but I do think it's a better set that people give it credit for. As somebody that sells it, I don't have any current listings of it because all the pieces that I got of it when I was farming Mother Sorrow all sold. Next up, if you were looking elsewhere, then you would have found Caius Defender, because it's from Southern Elsewhere, and dealing direct damage with non-heavy attacks grants you a persistent stack of Caius Duty, up to 10 stacks. After completing a fully charged heavy attack, you restore some stamina and magicka for each of those stacks that you consume. You can only gain 1 stack of duty every 1 second. This is an interesting set because it's absolutely fantastic for sustain, and I think that there's a lot of people that are sleeping on this when there's so many heavy attack builds out there these days. The only problem is that you don't really need a lot of resource sustain if you're using a heavy attack build. So I think that's why a lot of people overlook this set, and a lot of tanks that could benefit from this usually build themselves differently so that they don't have to use a full 5-piece set in this fashion. So overall, sometimes that's where I think where this set just falls short, because overall, it's a good set. The problem is that there's just a lot of better options, and what you'll notice is that as we review all of the sets and all the things, and don't worry, I'll fix my armor here right at the end of the video, because everybody will always say, Jake, your armor always needs to be repaired. Listen, man, I'm always taking damage. The key thing is that there are a lot of good sets out there. And if I say that a set is good, that means it's viable. If I say a set is great, that means it's used by a decent chunk of people. And if I say that it's absolutely fantastic, that means that there's a good chunk of people out there using it right now. And it's also likely going to stand the test of time when it comes to new content. I also thought about adding a new system for ranking these, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where like 7's average, we do decimal points, maybe 5's average. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments below, because I've been thinking about that. Maybe we should get rid of using words to describe sets and maybe just put a numeric value to it. So if that interests you, let me know in the comments below, because as always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you have to do to enter is leave a comment in the comments below. Tell me, would you like me to rate every set on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how good it is in its best form of content? So if it's best used for a healer, for PvP, how is it on a scale of 1 to 10? Just let me know in the comments below. And then do you prefer 7 average or 5 average? Second thing is just make sure you're subscribed. We're on the road to 25,000 subscribers. Absolutely crazy. And then make sure you follow on Twitch and Twitter for 2 additional entries in that. And then the third thing is just look for a hidden word to be flashed upon the screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. Thank you guys one last time. Bit of a longer video, more explanations. Please don't kill me too much in the comments below, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.